Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Conscious Workspace in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build business and connect you with the right people. I'm your host and Phoenix Business Radio studio partner, Karen Nowicki, and I am very excited to introduce you today to Canal Partners. We have Todd Belfer, who is a managing partner, Perry Jacobson, partner as well, and Chad Horstman as well. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Karen.
Very excited to learn all about you. We have Wired PR, Beth, to thank for the opportunity. So I always appreciate the great referrals for connecting with incredible people. I would love for one or all of you to just give us a brief overview about Canal Partners and who are you, who do you serve, and what's unique about you?
I'll take that. This is Todd, and we are a venture capital firm based in Scottsdale, and we invest in high growth emerging businesses in mostly Arizona and Southern California that are looking for growth capital between $1 and $5 million to invest mostly sales, marketing, and product. And we come in and help them not only with our capital, but human capital, our experience, and our referrals networks of who we have done business with in the past to help the company grow and develop a strategy for a successful exit at some point in the future.
That's what we should all be looking for in our business, right? What does it look like when I've had enough or I've ridden the ride long enough? And it's important to look at that from the very beginning of a business, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's important to figure out what's your goals. Perry and I had a meeting yesterday with a gentleman who has a great business based here in Arizona. And we asked, what do you want? And he didn't know how to answer that question. Like, what do you want to sell it? Do you want to keep it forever? Do you want to, try to take it public? I mean, what do you want? And I don't think he's ever really thought about that question, but he's built a great business so far. So that's a question we always ask, what do you want in your life and your business, and what's your preference?
When a business owner does have the answer to that, whether you've helped them land there or they came to you with that in mind, how does that shape what you are doing with them, on a daily basis or however often you are engaged in that business? How does it shape and inform what you're going to do and where you're going to go?
I'll let Perry or Chad take that one.
Well, I was just going to go back a minute. One of the things about when you talk to a business owner and ask them where they want to do, where they want to go, we also have a pool of investors, including ourselves, that we like to return money to, so that they're happy to put money in our next investment. So that also goes into part of the conversation between Chad, Todd, and myself about what the exit strategy and when we should exit and how to keep our investors happy at all times.
Is that unique to your firm, or a lot of VC groups doing that?
Well, it's not unique to our firm, but over time, your investors tend to get tired if you keep asking to invest in your companies and never return anything back to them. So it's very important to have a time horizon on these investments and be able to execute so that you can keep everybody in the loop, so to speak.
I was going to say, and one thing we look for when a founder answers that question is we're looking for a founder that's willing to stay with the company and continue to grow the company. Ideally, we're not looking to replace or put in a new CEO. We've had to do that in the past. It's not the ideal scenario. We want someone that's willing to. We're really investing in the founder and investing in the person because a lot of these companies are still young and growing, and ideally, you definitely want to keep them involved because they're usually the key to the success of the company.
For sure.
Well, like Todd said, we had a meeting yesterday with a local company, and they want to expand, but we found out they have one salesperson, and the one salesperson came on 3-4 months ago, and Todd looked at me and said, "Well, that's got to change."
Yeah, and so I have so many questions. One, I want to back up a little bit and ask each of you, how did you land here that Canal Partners is your thing? Tell me a little bit about your background, and did you always know that this is what you wanted to do? Todd, let's have you start for us.
I started Canal Partners in 2008, September 2008. It was a great month to start a venture capital firm because that was the month Lehman Brothers went out of business and the world was falling apart. So nobody was investing in anything. And so I'm like, wow, let's start a venture capital firm in Phoenix, Arizona, when at the height of the fear index. But what really the premise of starting the firm was, I was a founder, CEO in many companies. And I always thought there was not only lack of capital here in Phoenix, but lack of help. Help me try to grow my business. I call it, we're like sort of the other adults in the room that understand what these CEOs are going through. And a lot of times they don't have anybody inside the company they can talk to, either because they don't want to start sharing their fears and worries about the business with co-employees and their staff, but also people that have been there before and experienced what they're going through. Because when you're in a high growth situation, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things to worry about and try to manage. And we've been there before. We've done it before. Me, Chad, and Perry have all grown businesses and, been in a position where we've made mistakes. And I think one of the biggest benefits we can help our CEOs and C-level people with is avoiding the pitfalls and the mistakes that we've made in running our own businesses. And if we don't know the answer or are uncomfortable giving an answer, we'll reach out to our network and try to connect them with someone who has maybe more experience in that particular area. So it's important that these guys have a bench. It's not really a board of directors because board of directors don't typically go through these type of exercises. It's more like, we're your backbone. Call us for any reason, whether you want to fire someone, you want to hire someone, you don't know how to fire someone. The engineering team is delayed. And a lot of times it's just basic human development. It's fears of being vulnerable. It's fears of trying to make a decision without pissing somebody off. So a lot of times it's just counseling these guys on how to run their business without having emotion in it, to where they're, because a lot of times there's nepotism in the company. There's all kinds of friendships, and it's hard to make decisions. I mean, I met with the CEO the other day, and she's like, I just can't fire this person. I've known this person for so long. And I'm like, well, if you didn't know this person, would you fire this person? She goes, absolutely. But she's like having a hard time with it because she's such good friends with this person. So, those kind of situations, we are constantly dealing with our C-level people on how to grow their business and how to run it and take more of the emotion out of it. Because we're not as attached to the company as they are, because it's their baby. We're sort of removed a little bit from the emotion and the level of impact they have.
And have the experience, right, to help guide folks through.
Right.
I'm sure that you've used or heard the saying, hire slow and fire fast, right? In all the years that
I do say that a lot. I like that one.
There's so much truth to that. And Todd, your background, what was it? Marketing, sales, business development, a combination of everything? What was the sweet spot for you?
Business development and sales. Yeah, business development and sales. I call it, I was a street level entrepreneur that back in 1990, I just figured out how to get stuff done without knowing a lot. And I was very clear that I didn't know a lot when I was in these businesses, because I wanted really smart people around me to help me become successful. So I always made it clear that I am not the smartest guy in the room and don't have many answers. So I'm looking for my bench and my team to help me grow the business. And I've learned a lot along the way, and I try to pass that along to our CEOs and founders and give them a little experience on what I've experienced in my career. And I think Chad and Perry can say the same.
Love it. You've got this great ease about you. Maybe the guys would say differently, but this down to earth, but clearly know what you're doing, and I would imagine that the folks you work with are very blessed by that guidance. Chad or Perry, I would love to hear from both of you. Who'd like to go next?
I'll pick it up. Todd and I met back in 2005 just by chance. on a trip to Italy. We both found out we were in private equity. We kept in touch. We did a bunch of deals together. I did some of his deals. He did some of our deals. I was based out of New York at the time. And over the years, we've become not only co-investors and business partners, we've also become very good friends. And I would come out a couple times a year to visit Todd, and we'd hang out, we'd talk, we'd meet other LPs and other CEOs that he was involved with. And I'm a golfer, so I played some golf. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I bought a place out here, came out a little more often, and Todd kept saying, "Why don't you just leave New York, get out of the bad weather, come join me at Canal?" And I'm like, maybe, I don't know. And then, this year all the pieces fell into place, and Chad also came on board, and I said, "Well, you know what? The three of us can make a go of this," and here we are.
I love it. New York. Where in New York? I had asked Chad that too.
I lived in Manhattan. I grew up in New Rochelle. My first career was not private equity. My first career, I worked on Wall Street as a market maker on the New York Stock Exchange for 20 years. And then somehow morphed into a private equity position over the next 15. And then now I'm here with Canal, and I'm going to do my thing with Todd and Chad.
Love it. And you've been here how long, Perry?
I officially moved here this year, but like I said, I've been coming out here, several times a year, especially in the cold weather in New York.
Well,
since I bought my place.
Yeah. We turned up the heat for you this summer, as you noticed.
Yeah, it was hot. It was hot this summer.
Yeah, I made a vow. It's just my 13-year-old and I left at home. My older two kiddos have grown and gone. And I looked at him at the end of the summer and I said, "We are not going to be here all of next summer. I'm going to find a way to get us out at least for a month and do something else," because it about killed me. I've been here since 1979, so Arizona's all I know. But this particular summer with COVID and everything, I'm out. I'm done. Chad.
Well, luckily for my kids still live back in New York, so I can go visit them.
Yeah, perfect. I was telling Chad when we were in the green room getting ready to go live, my daughter was in Brooklyn with Red Bull this past year as an on-premise rep, and she just moved back yesterday. She's already on a flight to Mexico to celebrate the fact that she's home, but she loved her New York experience, even though it was very different with so many restaurants and bars closed down for the period of time that they were. But what a beautiful area. Chad, how about you? Yeah. Tell us about you and how you landed with Canal.
So I sold my business, Yandy.com, a local, online business, so sold everywhere, but based in Phoenix. Started in my garage in Scottsdale. I had hired one of Todd's friends, and so she's like, "You have to meet Todd." And so Todd and I connected, and he was like, "How have I not heard about this company?" And so we just connected back then over dinner, and we stayed in touch. And eventually, I started investing in some of his deals. I sold my company, and I was kind of like one of those guys Todd describes. I just had my head down and was building this business, and didn't really know what I had until I spoke to some investment bankers who kind of floored me, and I was like, "Wow, I didn't know my business was worth this much money." So after I sold it, me and Todd started hanging out a lot, and we go drink smoothies in Old Town and talk about business. And he's like, "I want you to listen in on this call and tell me what you think of this company, and you have insights and all this." And it kind of morphed from there to, "Why don't you become my partner?" And I was, extremely flattered. And I was searching for something to do, and being an entrepreneur, I was pretty bored, honestly, and just being kind of retired at a relatively young age. I don't feel young, but I guess that's considered young. And so, it was hard to find something that would be exciting again and give me that feeling. But kind of being around, these startups and hearing people that are kind of going through that growth phase that I went through with my company, that gives me that buzz that I need. And I really enjoy it. It's kind of like a dream job that I didn't know I would be good at or have an opportunity. Kind of just presented itself to me, and I feel very lucky that that me and Todd connected, and that he thought I would be a good fit. But yeah, it's a lot like being on Shark Tank. Everybody loves that show, and I mean, this job is that level of fun and entertainment.
That's a great comparison to the work that you do. And thank goodness for Shark Tank. They kind of have helped us as entrepreneurs and business owners ask the tough questions, ask the money questions, right? What's the revenue? What's the long-term projection? And what's your exit strategy? And do you have a product? Right? Some of those questions that we've had fun watching some of those folks create that. I've done 800 interviews, either hosted or produced, here at Phoenix Business RadioX in 3 years that I've owned the studio. And I've seen about 2,000 professionals, C-level executives, come in and tell their story. And oftentimes we've talked about the startup community in Arizona. And Todd, you alluded to this a little bit. Arizona, and maybe it's changed the last 4 or 5 years, but a lot of folks would come in and say, we just don't have enough venture capitalist interest here in Arizona. Our folks are looking for that kind of help outside of the state. Can you speak to the startup community in Arizona, and what sets us apart from other ecosystems?
Well, I would agree a little bit with that statement that pre-revenue companies, I think, have a harder time getting funded in Arizona. But once a company gets to like $3 million of annual recurring revenue, it's not a problem getting capital. And most of that capital is outside of Arizona. 95% of that capital is going to be outside of Arizona. But that $0 to $3 million in revenue, it is a little harder in Phoenix to get that capital because there's only 1 or 2 venture capital firms in Phoenix, and then there's a bunch of angel investors. So unless you're connected to the Bay Area or the East Coast, it's tough to really network, because investment bankers they're not going to take on a project to raise money for a $1 million or $500,000 revenue company, especially when you're trying to raise $1, $2, $3 million. So it's all about networking and finding out who you know. I used to call what we did for years geographical arbitrage. How do you guys have such successful internal rates of return? How do you have such a great track record? And I would say it's real simple: geographic arbitrage. I find companies here that don't know how to connect to the East Coast venture firms, and we fund them, build them up, help them, and then we go to the East Coast firms and do a recap for the next round at a much higher valuation. It really was a simple business plan. Now, what's happened in the last few years, a lot of the East Coast firms have started to come to Phoenix and to invest in earlier deals. So I've probably lost a dozen deals in the last 3 years to firms from the East Coast and the West Coast that were not getting on planes before. These are $1, $2, $3 million deals. So it has changed recently. We'll see if COVID has changed it again. I don't know, but from 2008 to probably 2017-ish, it was never an issue. It was a geographic arbitrage opportunity. And we just sold a company a couple of weeks ago. He literally talked to me and one local angel group. And we just sold the business for a lot of money and made great money on our investment. But he didn't talk to any firms in California or the East Coast. It was just us. And he was doing $1 million in revenue. So, a lot of times, like Chad said, his head was down. He was running his business, growing his business. He wasn't connected to the world of venture capital and angel investors. And when you go to raise capital, you're like, I'll call my lawyer. Maybe I'll call my brother-in-law. He knows somebody. And it's really, you just don't know who to call. Maybe you figure out how to get on TechCrunch. But, these firms aren't going to take a call from a Phoenix-based software company doing $400,000 in revenue. It's like a cold call to a venture firm. They're going to be like, we're not interested. Thank you. So we get definitely good looks at all the companies out of Phoenix. But the last few years, before COVID at least, it was getting much more competitive for smaller companies. Over 3 million, I would say there's probably 50 venture firms that have that company on their radar throughout the country. Not in Phoenix, but California and the East Coast. Those companies that are 3 million and above, they're on a lot of radar screens of venture firms. But 0 to 3 million, it's very, very few. I don't know if Perry or Chad want to add to that.
Maybe that's a no. Perry, are you?
I think that pretty much covers it. I can't really add to that.
Yeah. Chad, you're good too?
That's pretty much exactly what happened with me. I had my head down, and then you find out, and then you try to find somebody local. In my case, I did go to California and talk to a bunch of venture capital companies there. I think I was a little too big for Canal, my company, but so that's where Canal, I think, has a niche where, there's a lot of underserved Arizona companies that need to raise money, and we kind of get our pick of the litter, and that's how Todd's been able to have such impressive returns to the investors. Is we're providing a service to an underserved market, and it definitely has advantages for us, and advantages for these local companies that, obviously we've helped them succeed too. I think, obviously we're choosing great companies, but I think we provide value and we provide a roadmap to get them to the next level.
Are you comfortable speaking to some of the, go ahead, Perry.
I will tell you that in the short time the summer sort of ended, Todd and I have gone, and Chad, but I mean, we've gone through, I don't know, it's got to be 50 to 100 deals. Not all of them we are interested in, but the flow of local entrepreneurs getting a hold of us at this point is impressive, because we don't always have to go look for them. They sometimes come and seek us, which is great, because if we have a reputation that we can help them, that can only help us get more deals to look at. But I will tell you, the flow of deals that we've seen over the last 2 or 3 months has been pretty impressive, I think. They're not all great deals, but they're pretty impressive.
And how great it is that you've created enough traction and really authority that people are now coming to you. Love that. Tell me about the belief that you have behind investing local. Why is that important?
I think it's if you ask the CEOs and founders that have done that, invested with local companies like our CEOs, and then you ask us that same question, I think you'll get a lot of the same answer, which is there's a lot more of a connection between us and the C-level people when we're local. Mm-hmm. We're going to dinner with them. We're going to lunch with them. We're hanging out in their office. They're hanging out in our office. There's a level of trust and connection that doesn't exist if I'm taking money from a New York firm or a San Francisco firm, because you're seeing them at board meetings, maybe a phone call once in a while. But we try to develop a relationship that is much tighter, where they feel safer talking to us and feel like they can trust us more when they start airing their dirty laundry out. Because a lot of CEOs want to look great in front of their investors, and they only want to give you great news. We encourage them to give us the bad news so we can help them. Like, we're not, looking for the bad news so we can scold you and tell you how bad of a job you're doing. We want the bad news so we can see how we can help you solve the problems. And I think there is that level of trust where they get there quicker with us, and we become friends with them. A lot of the CEOs and founders that I've funded, I'm very close to today. And, we sold the business years ago. They've become really good friends, and it's a lot easier to do that when they're in your backyard. And we can help them with the local network too. So they're trying to hire a CFO, a CMO, a CTO. We know people locally where East Coast firms or West Coast firms aren't going to have the level. They're just going to tell you to call a recruiter. We can go through our network and say, oh, we know this person, and really help them fill out their bench and their team. I think easier than a firm that's outside of Arizona. So I'm a big fan of local companies. I would wish we could do 100% of our companies local, and maybe we can in the future. I mean, we saw one yesterday. That's a phenomenal company. If we saw a bunch of those, we wouldn't have to leave Phoenix, which would be great.
Well, let's hope
we don't like traveling.
Yeah, let's not anymore, right?
Yeah.
I'll also tell you my experience, and I'm sure Todd and Chad could say the same things. If you take a CEO or the CFO out and I'm playing golf with them for 3-4 hours, not only do you learn about their business personality, but you learn about them themselves. And I think that comfort level, I know Todd likes to go do yoga with some of our CEOs. And I think that comfort level of that companionship and camaraderie really helps the relationship between us and the founder / CEO of the companies. And if they're local, it's just that much easier to do.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're sharing a lot of the same values that I have at Phoenix Business RadioX and our entire network, which is nationwide. I'm a studio partner, so it's a licensed partnership. But that's why we do the interviews the way we do them, so that we can really get to know people. I open the studio because I'm a coach. I work with folks around, getting their head clear and mindset and all that stuff. And I was the higher up, I was starting to work with people who, politicians, doctors, attorneys, the less likely they were to refer me. And that had me puzzled because I was still the one that they called and said, oh, you're doing a great job. And guess what? I just accomplished that conversation, kind of like Todd was talking about. You become that head coach, right? Helping them step out of fear and step into action, right action. And when they weren't referring, I thought that's very puzzling. Well, it turned out that a lot of it was ego. They didn't want to let anybody know that they had me in their pocket. But that's why I opened the studio. I wanted this opportunity to talk to people just like we're talking today, to really get to know each other in that very informal conversation. That's why I set the tone before we even come on live, the way that I do around the kind of the metaphor around having a beer or a cup of coffee together. When you're playing golf or you're at a backyard barbecue, or just the way the three of you talked about the dynamics of your relationship and how you came to be partners, speaks volumes about who you are as professionals. And anymore, our lives are no longer separate between professional life and personal life, right? Especially as an entrepreneur business owner, it's all together. It's really magnificent what you're doing on behalf of your folks that you're working with. Are you comfortable speaking to some of the local companies that you've invested in? Are you willing to share some of those stories?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, tell us who you're working with.
Yeah, we've probably done about 12 local companies since 2008. Some of them are WebPT. Yay. We invested in WebPT's first round. I'm sure you know who they are.
For sure.
I was a co-founder of a company that we invested in called NetTime, and we sold that to Paychex. That was a time and attendance and scheduling company that we sold to Paychex. That was one of our investments. We just sold a company called Attribytes in the food service industry, and we just sold that a few weeks ago. We were invested 2 years with Mike Kovaric at Attribytes. What else have we done locally? We did a company that we're still invested in called Allbound, which is partner relationship management space, PRM. And we have probably 35 employees there. And they are based here in Atlanta. So we've been invested in that company for 5 years, 4 to 5 years. We've done some great companies in Atlanta and San Diego as well. I think one of our best companies we've ever invested in is in San Diego called Pet Desk. And that's a marketing automation company for veterinarians and consumers of pets. And that company has just skyrocketed. We invested in them when they were $2 million in revenue a few years ago. And I mean, they're many, many times that now. So that's one of our probably best investments. What else? We had a couple in Atlanta that we sold. Click Dimensions, CallRail. CallRail is sort of the godfather of call analytics in that space. And we sold 90% of our investment. We still have a small investment in that company. And they were $2 million in revenue, and they're a much bigger company now. I think they were 8 employees, and I want to say they're 250 employees now. So I love when I think WebPT was about the same thing. They were 6 employees. And I don't know how many hundreds of employees they have now, but it's great to see these companies go from under a dozen employees to 100 or 200, 300 employees. And we had a little bit to do with it. It's it just feels good to create employment, to create a culture, to create an attitude. A lot of these companies just have this attitude of gratitude. They're just such good people. And Heidi at WebPT is just probably the nicest person I've ever met. Just such good people that I won't invest in a company where I just feel a little bit of angst with that CEO or founder. It's if I just don't feel that connection, to me, that speaks volumes more so than the model or the financials or anything else. It's references, and that feel of that human connection is so important to me. And we've been very lucky that we've had that most of the time. We've had a couple that we haven't had that success, and those didn't turn out well, by the way.
Yeah.
So the ones that turned out well, it wasn't it wasn't just by accident. It was, we had this like magical connection, felt comfortable with them. The egos are checked at the door on both sides, and it's just like chemistry comes alive.
Love that. Heidi's been on with us several times. Go ahead, Perry.
I may morph a little bit off of Canal, but I just want to tell you a little bit about Todd. Todd is so involved in the Scottsdale area, and his little side hobby is restaurant business. He's had tremendous success in the restaurant business, even though he's so modest. He won't mention it, but most of it's because he's like, I hate to say, like, he's Mr. Scottsdale. I mean, everybody knows Todd, and whatever he does, he's got his tentacles out. And if he has a restaurant, people want to come in and see him, and they'll sit and talk, just about business or anything else. So I just let you know that, because Todd's modest and doesn't like to mention that, but he's very has a very successful track record in the restaurant business also. Just so you know.
Thank you, Perry.
That's good to know. Have you always been a magnet for people and great connections and that sort of thing, Todd? What do you think your early inspiration was for your success?
I think I'm a lot like my dad. My dad was a business development sales guy his whole career, and he always just loved people and just had this infectious personality. And I think I just kind of took after him from a very young age, of watching him develop connections everywhere he went. Strangers, airport, wherever he went, he was meeting people. So I think he was just a great model for me, to show me how to get to know people and not have to show off or be someone you're not. Just, meet people everywhere you go and just be a nice person. And he was a great role model for me for that.
It's great to hear. Perry and Chad, let's have Chad share next and then Perry afterwards. What would you attribute your success to? Is there an inspiration, somebody or something that was inspiring for you to get you to where you are today? Which one thing, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like Todd, always looked up to my dad. He definitely instilled a hard work ethic, and he had his own business in a way, because he was an accountant and he had his own practice, and even worked from home for a while back before that was even very trendy like it is today. So I think they always pushed me hard in school, and I don't know. I also am a big people person. That's the thing I missed the most about having my own business, was going into the office and seeing all my employees, and I felt like I had 200 friends and almost like a second family there. And I think my employees felt the same way, and had very low turnover. And we always, you do the birthdays, and someone has a baby and you bring baby gifts and all this stuff. So we had pizza all the time. We just always took care of everybody, and so I missed that. So that that this has definitely filled that void for me, and been something that's really exciting for me as well. But I think, definitely watching my dad and how hard he worked, and then my mom, she went back to school in probably her 30s to become a doctor, which as a woman was really difficult to do back then. We actually had to go to the Caribbean for a year or two for her to go to medical school. Everyone, even my grandpa, always told me, that I was going to be an entrepreneur. Even as a young kid, I was always trying to invent things and build forts out in the woods. And I remember, some of the other neighborhood kids one time, were like, how come you're the leader of our club? And I was like, I don't know, but it seems like I'm the one that wants to do the most stuff and build the most things, and build these forts and do this stuff. So I don't know why, but I kind of organize it. So even as a kid, I remember that, but it's kind of how I wound up here. I think my family, or maybe it's in my genes. I don't know.
Sounds like it. Perry, how about you? Great stories, Chad. Thank you. What is your inspiration for your success? What do you attribute that to?
Well, again, like Todd, my father was a very outgoing, personable person. And then my career on the floor of the stock exchange I was lucky in two aspects. I had great partners there, and my firm in New York and here in Scottsdale, which I think is very important. My partners Obviously, I don't want to let them down, and also I want to be successful for all three of us. But back when I was younger, I was on the floor of the exchange dealing with 3,000 personalities every day. And it gave me a great tool to be able to relate to different people differently. So over the course, that's been a great attribute of mine. Over the course of time, when I moved into private equity, the same thing. I get to relate to different people differently because not everybody's the same. And the combination of being able to do that and having great partners who have your back really motivates me to succeed.
I love that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention my dad. He's here in Tempe and moved us here in 79 from the Bay Area. He was the VP for Litton Electronics, which is now L3. Won a couple Emmys for night vision goggles and microwave ovens back in the day. And he's been my rock. Still to this day, with several grandkids, and he spends a lot of time on the golf course, Perry. He plays 9 holes at Little Shalimar in Tempe, but he's been my inspiration just around working hard, as Chad mentioned, and just never giving up. I'm grateful, very grateful for him, especially this past year has been quite an epic year for me personally. And he's just been my, propping me up and always encouraging me to continue to do my best. So thank you so much, each of you, for sharing. Let's talk again about, obviously, VC money. What should startup founders consider before they accept an offer to work with a firm? What do they have to be looking for? What should they consider?
I think the level of due diligence we're doing on an individual, they should be doing on us. I encourage all of the people we're talking to call our CEOs and executives that we work with. Call some of our investors, get to know us, run background checks on us. I mean, we have nothing to hide. So it's like, we're totally transparent, but they need to do the work. Like, we can't do it for them. So they need to find out who we are, how we work, what kind of personality we have. Are we a rageaholic? Are we, short term when we're telling them we're long term? I mean, they got to figure out who we are. And I remember when Heidi was looking for the recap at WebPT, Paul and Heidi and Brad, it took them a long time to really figure out which firm they wanted to go with, because it was about getting to know the people. And I remember, it's like, well, come on, can't we just make a decision? And it's like, it just took them a long time to get comfortable with who they wanted to work with, because like Chad was saying, it is family. Like, you become like part of your family, and you are with each other all the time, especially if you're a local firm like us. So you really want to say, do I want to spend time with this? I look back at a lot of my ex-partners now, and especially with some of the work I've done personally, it's like, I would never be partners with these people again. Never, but I didn't know what I didn't know back then. It's like, life's too short to be partners with people that don't have the same principles, values, and morals, and, the same type of, acceptance in life for what you like, and to be with people that you just don't connect with. It's too short. So it's almost like, it's like a marriage, or, you're dating. You're not going to go on a second date with someone if you don't like them, So, it's the same thing with, not every venture capital firm is perfectly matched with a CEO or entrepreneur. So you got to have that right fit.
Perry or Chad, anything to add to that?
I think you pretty much covered it. I mean, you got to, break bread and sit down with the group and, get to spend as much time with them as you can. And I think, once again, that's an advantage to being local, because when I sold my business, I'm not looking, hindsight's 2020, but, I don't feel like I chose the right person to exit to. They were in California, so I only got to meet with them. Maybe it was 2 or 3 times, Todd and Canal, as a group, we will sit down with a local business probably 20 times before we do a deal, between phone calls and actual meetings. So definitely that's something that, these companies that work with Canal, they need to do, and they'll get to do with us. So I think that gives us a huge advantage. And then, of course, we're nice guys, and we're not the sharks. We're actually, we genuinely care about people and about the companies we invest in.
Yeah, I think the in-person interaction we have with the local companies, and you need the CEOs and founders to trust, at least initially have some sort of trust, and we're not trying to take advantage of them or pull the wool over their eyes, or just take advantage of them, so that they need to feel, besides doing their due diligence, they need to feel like they could trust us. And I think that our track record speaks for itself, and they speak to our other CEOs that we've been involved with or still involved with. And I think to a man, they all give us all 5 stars and give us a thumbs up on trustworthiness. And I think that's a big deal.
What is the process well, first of all, how do folks find out about you? Let's talk about, you mentioned that there's some traction around people now coming to you and saying, hey, can you take a look at what we're doing, and does it make sense for us to get involved together? If it's not a referral and they're not finding you, how are you going out and looking for those folks?
Outreach, doing what we're doing here with you, local articles, going to events, Venture Madness, Invest Southwest type of events, the Startup Grind. I mean, a lot of this stuff's virtual now, but just getting out in the community. We do get, like I think it was mentioned before, we do get a lot of our business from referrals, but we do see a lot of inflow from our website, from LinkedIn. I mean, I probably get 5 or 6 LinkedIn business plans a week. Facebook, even I've gotten some from Facebook, and then just being around town. People come up to me at the gym or at my yoga studio. Oh, I heard you're a venture capitalist. I got a friend who's trying to raise money. So it's a small community, and there's not many venture capitalists locally. I think if you Google venture capital Arizona or venture capital Phoenix or Scottsdale, there's maybe a couple that come up, 2, 3, but there's really not that many options to raise capital locally if you're a small startup company.
What trends do you guys predict for the future for local capital? Is it going to continue to grow and stay strong?
I think we've seen this playbook in Phoenix quite a few times, where the real estate crowd makes a lot of money, and then they start to invest a little bit in tech and non-real estate related businesses, and then they lose their money and have a terrible experience, and then they go away and go back to just real estate, because there is a lot of wealth within the real estate community here in Phoenix. And we've seen that money sort of come a little bit into software in our sector and then come out, but it's not organized. It's not professional. It's just sort of like a network effect of having so much money in real estate, and they want to diversify a little bit. But as far as like having a firm like Canal or Greyhawk or a true professional venture capital firm investing in software, I just don't think there's enough inventory and deal flow to do a large firm. We don't put that much money to work. We put $5-6 million a year to work typically, and you can't really build a firm and hire a staff with just that kind of, with those kind of fees and investment dollars.
Yeah. And to clarify, I think what Todd means is, these real estate entrepreneurs are kind of going their own and seeding companies and stuff like that. Obviously, Canal, we've had a great return in the good times and in the bad times. So trends for us, it might be a little bit harder for us to raise money in the future. Right now, it's, really, really easy. We're actually oversubscribed, but if the market does take a downturn again, which inevitably it eventually should or will, it might become a little bit harder. But like I said, we've shown success, since Todd's been doing this since 2008, like he said, and so we've been through ups and downs, and we still have a great return. So that's the only real difference. Is it might just become harder to find investors a little bit, but I don't think it's a problem.
I always tell Todd that our worst problem should be we're oversubscribed in every deal.
That is our worst problem right now.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's a good problem to have.
I mean, we were talking about this yesterday, and it's like typically we raise the money in like 2 to 3 days for a company or less. It's like we just pass the hat around amongst our top LPs and ourselves. And, we would love to get to a point where we have more inventory and not enough partners, because we want to put more money to work. We want to put more capital out to the market for companies, but because we're not a fund, we are an entity-based venture capital firm, which means we set up an entity per company we invest in. We don't have a pool of money that we can call. We won't do investments unless we perform it to meet our objective IRR return. So unless we believe we could make a 50 to 60% annual return, we're not going to invest in that company. Mm-hmm. So we pass on a lot of companies where if we had a $100 million fund, we might do more deals because our expectation for returns is less. And then plus you get the fees, obviously from investing from a fund.
What introductions would be helpful to you? So, of course, this is Business RadioX. We've got business listeners and executive leaders from not only Arizona, but, of course, worldwide, and certainly within the U.S. As you look at growth and you want to continue to be known, not only local, but really nationwide with the work that you're doing, what industry, what vertical, what little niche are you looking to have more introductions to?
Always looking for that diamond in the rough company. Looking for that company that really doesn't know how to go get capital, but has a great product, great management team, phenomenal founder, CEO. We're looking for that diamond in the rough, that next WebPT, NetTime, CallRail, PetDesk. Like, we're looking for that really shiny star that no one else has kind of discovered or figured out yet. So, I would say inventory or companies looking for growth capital. And then also accomplished entrepreneurs and executives themselves. A lot of them retire here and they're bored. And we love to build our venture partner bench to bring in people like this. We have a venture partner that just sold his business for $500 million. He doesn't need to work anymore, but he's available for phone calls and lunches and dinners to talk to the CEOs that we have and executives and help them. So we're always looking to build our venture bench with accomplished people that are willing to give back and to help the next CEO, the next entrepreneur try to figure it out.
So good. Perry, Chad, any other aspect of that you want to highlight?
No, I mean, Todd was pretty thorough about that. I think that sometimes you just want to get introduced to different types of people who you never know in the future might actually fit one of your models or one of your businesses that you need. So, we're open to meeting, pretty much anybody who could add value to the firm.
Well, I want to thank you all for spending time with me this morning and helping me better understand what Canal Partners is all about, and certainly paving the way for us in VC as it relates to our Arizona companies. And in order to reach out to you, I have canalpartners.com as the website and linkedin.com/company/canal-partners-LLC. Are all three of you on LinkedIn professionally, individually as well?
Yep.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
Excellent.
We are. I am.
I always like to end a segment like this just with a question. We already talked about, inspiration and how have you found your way to success? Who was influential? How about either a book that you've read, a quote that you want to share, something recently that has been offering strength and motivation for you, particularly through this quarantine time, something that you've kind of just bitten onto and said, this is good, I'm going to hang on to this. Let's end with that from each of you.
I would say I read a book this summer called E Squared by Pam Grout that was given to me by a friend. And I'm like, oh, this is a terrible book. This is like gay. I'm not doing this. And then I read it. I'm like, this is metaphysics at its finest. And I just believe metaphysics applies to every area of my life, not just my personal life, but also my business life. So as you mentioned, your dad being your biggest fan, like that type of stuff is so important in the chemistry of success in business.
Absolutely. Thank you. Chad, Perry?
I'll just tell you. Oh, go ahead, Chad.
Oh, I was going to say, I was talking to Dr. Matthew Taylor. He's a retired yoga therapist. He was one of the first people to go into that field of yoga therapy before it was trend. And I saw him for many years. He's retired now. We were just texting back and forth and about COVID and about everything that's going on. And I said, man, is there anything good going on in the world? And he said back, well, I have my friend Chad. So that's what's good to me. And so it was kind of like, it's kind of crazy to think how, we could talk about all the things that are going on, the fires. There's just tons of things that are going wrong in the world all the time, not just now, but now it seems a little bit worse, right? But, at the end of the day, we have our human connection still, even if we're doing it through Zoom right now. That's what really matters. And I think, we kind of heard from everyone today about, our family and being inspired by them. But, a lot of what's made us successful is that I think we value those connections, and that's why we're in this field. And I think that's my inspiring quote was when he wrote me back that I wasn't expecting that as the response. I was expecting some news clipping of something good that was happening, but that's really all that really matters. I think.
I love that. It really is. First of all, we're energy, right? And what we put out into the world, we're going to get back. And if we're focusing on healthy, positive things, we're going to get healthy, positive things. Yeah, hard to do with some of the social media, influences if you can't step away from that. But I love that was a nugget for you and really an opportunity to take a look. It's that simple. Love and light and really leadership is that simple. Just being in relationship with good people.
Yeah, being grateful for our friendships right now is really important. It's a really important thing to focus on right now. We have the time to focus on it, even if it can't be face to face. It can be virtual, and making those calls to people that you haven't talked to in a while. That's what we should all be doing right now.
Agreed. Perry, how about you?
Well, as Chad said, it's during this crisis you kind of learn who your real friends are and who your superficial friends are. And I've spent a lot of time, as Todd will tell you, going over that list and delving into, unfortunately, the politics has been caught my eye and the COVID stuff. I read a lot of stuff about COVID and I relay it onto my friends, and hopefully I'm inspiring them to get through this whole crisis as they are inspiring me.
Excellent. Such a joy to be with you again. Canal Partners, canalpartners.com. Thank you again. It's been a real pleasure to get to know each of you. You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio X, broadcasting live from within the Max 6 Conscious Workspace studio. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. And until next time, I'm Karen Nowicki. Thanks for listening.